Welcome back, everybody. So you can see I've got paint on my hands. So I primed this and I painted this with um, the two colors I used. I think I mentioned this before, but I used the German Gray XF63, and I used some of the Tamiya Chrome Silver X11. So these are Tamiya brand paints, Tamiya. And I used, I bought the gray quite a while ago, and I think I bought the silver as well. Um, but I mixed the silver in there because I figured Tamiya paint mixes well together. Now, the ratio, and you can see here, this is the plain color. Okay, now granted, this has been primed and all that kind of stuff, so you can see the difference between the primer, the standard, and so that's regular. That's how it came. That's with primer, and this is the color that I put on. So this has got 120 drops about of the gray, and then I put 10 drops of silver. And I thought that the silver might just kind of give it a little bit of, you can see a little bit of sparkle here and there where some of the flake is at, which is fine. I'm going to dress this up a little bit more. I'm going to do a wash on this to help bring out these details of the flooring. And so I'll do that before I move too much farther. But this issue isn't really about this floor. So when we get to that point, we'll do that. And in fact, this isn't even going to get mounted to the floor just yet. But I was going to paint this as well, so it would be the same color. So I wanted to use, I'll have to mix up the paint again. That's why I want to keep track of what that ratio was. And again, that was about 120 of the gray and 10 of the silver. And so, yeah. Actually, it looks like I just got a call from my wife. I don't know if that came up or not. We'll find out, I guess. We'll see if it showed up on my screen over here. I don't know if it's going to show up on your guys' screen over there. If so, I will have to edit that out because, yeah, you don't need to see that. But so what we're doing here is I thought that I would record this. So what I've done is, I mentioned this before, I'm going to try to build this up. And so what I've done is I've just put this here. I drew around the outside, and you can kind of see where what I've got going on here. So I just cut this, so I separated this here. So that's separated there. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, I don't need this whole thing, but I'm going to go ahead and take the whole thing anyway. So what I'm going to do is cut this. Now, with this type of plastic, usually what you can do is you can score it and then bend it a couple times and it'll break. So there you go. So it broke. And I'm just going to, like I said, I don't need this whole thing, but we'll just kind of finish that off there. And there we go. So there's that. Now we can kind of work with a bit of a smaller piece. Like I said, I'm only going to need about probably that much or less, but we're going to try to figure that out here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this a little bit bigger than what I measured, and I'm going to use the backside. I've always heard that using the backside for scoring works a lot better because you can kind of control it a little bit. So like I said, I want it to be a little bit bigger than what I took, because I can always sand it down, right? So I'm going to score this. So I've got it scored. We'll see if I can bend and break this. And I'll get this done if I can, and then I'm gonna have to check to see what my wife wanted because she is looking for some stuff at the store, and I'm sure she's probably got questions, and she will not be happy if I ignore her phone call. So let me get this part done. All right, there we go. And I will be back after I check to see what she wanted. Now, my initial thought was to paint this whole thing before I put it together because it would be a lot easier to do it that way, right? And that way it's painted, done, over with. And then I started thinking about it. And the problem with that plan is that in order to do this part that I want to do, um, I want to paint it all together. So uh, that's going to change things up a little bit. Okay, so that's glued. And so now what we do is we just go ahead and stick this into the holes. There we go. Put that in the holes there. All right. So anybody that's paid attention in the movies, what you would have seen is get these pieces out of here. I don't need them. What you would have seen is seat backs that go from here around, but this part is just basically like there's no seat backs. But this model comes with seat backs here. So that's why I'm doing this. So my thought is I want to see how long of a piece I need. What do you think? I just glue those two pieces together. That's not the best glue job I've ever done. This is the best glue job I've ever done using a for sale sign and cutting an arch and then gluing them together. How's that? I've never done this before. This is the best I've ever done. Okay. Now, one problem is it's kind of arched down. But we can kind of adjust that. I'm going to see about putting some glue on this inside just to strengthen it up a little bit. Grabbing this with my fingers isn't always a good idea. All right. All right. So that's glued together. I said it's not the neatest thing, but it is together. And you can actually tell, like, let's see if you can see this. So you see my arch. I mean, the big problem is the arch isn't, it's more bent than it is arched. So that kind of affects how this glue up here on the top. You can see how there's a little bit of a gap right here, right there. So there's a little bit of gap there and maybe a slight little one over here. But I can fill that in with putty. and all that kind of stuff. So um, the goal right now is just for this to dry and stay together, right? So I'm just going to leave this dry for a bit, and we'll come back and check on it. Okay, so this is dry and all glued. Off camera, I've trimmed it a little bit to kind of trim it up, and you can see that it's pretty close to the right height. Now, one of the things is, I don't know if you can kind of see it there. So it's not perfectly round. So it's got kind of a crease here and a crease here, crease there and there. And so you can kind of, I don't know, it's not perfect, but it's a Millennium Falcon, so I really don't mind. But I got it about the right height, and you can kind of see that if I hold it up like that, it's pretty much the right height. It's slightly cut crooked, so this side's up. This side over here is up a little bit, but I don't think you're going to see it once I paint this. And so what I want to do, and I kind of got started, but I decided I wanted to show you guys this, is I mentioned that I was talking about building out this thing here, whether or not I was going to do it. And after I put this up here on the end, let me show you. So I'll try to hold this in place. So if you look there, there's a pretty big, I mean, I could fill that in with putty and all that kind of stuff. But I thought, well, why not see if putting this on here would do the trick. So I've already kind of marked this and cut this right here. And so what I have to do now is get an idea of how far down I need to go with this cut, and essentially how high up I need to go there, right? So if I used to have a little bitty machinist rule or something. Someplace I've got a HO scale rule. I don't know where it's at. So, but what I got to figure out is how tall this part is here, right? So how tall that is in comparison to this. So if I stick this up here, it's going to go like that. So one of the things I could say is where that cut is nearly in the right spot. Maybe just a little bit farther. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my knife, and let's see if you can see this. Just use my knife and just cut it just a smidge more. Yep. All right. So let's cut just a little bit more, and then all I have to do is come straight across. All right. So let's see if I can do that. And I'm holding my knife fairly flat in hopes that I line it up, and then all I have to do is just kind of pull it. So I've kind of scored that. There we go. We'll bend it, break it off. And now let's see what this looks like. I don't know if you guys can hear that, but my dogs are going just absolutely crazy because my wife and daughter are back. They've been gone all day. Let's see how this turns out here. I think that might work. Let's see. That go. Yeah, see, that'll actually slide underneath the cushion. So I would say that's at the right height. So all I have to do is cut it for the width and the height here, and I can glue it in place. So I think what I'll do is I'll put some blue blue tack on there and go from there. So I'll be back in a few. Okay, so we're going to take a little bit of the blue tack, pardon my reach, and we're going to stick it. I just want a very small amount. I'm just going to use that much. I'm going to stick it right along the bottom there. Come on. Let's use this. Turn it sideways. Okay. Good enough for me. Okay. Now let's stick this on here. Come on. Doo-doo-doo. All right. So that's tacked in place. Kind of. All right. So now we can get this where it needs to be. There we go. And do I get a line on there? No. Let's tilt this up a little bit. Helps if I have lead sticking out. Right? Okay. I got a line on there. All right. And we're going to go. I'm going to think that I got a line there. All right. Let's peel that off. I do have a line there. Okay. So there we go. Blue tack can go away. All right. So I'm going to cut this just a smidge below the line because I'd like for it to be even or a little below. So, all right, there we go. And this one will go there. Let's have a look. Let's see if this works out. This spun around here. So there we go. It's going to be something like that. I push it back just a little bit. And I can probably take it down a little bit. I don't know if you can see that. It is sticking up in the cushion just a smidge. So what we're going to do is we're just going to cut that, cut that. Let's see here. There we go. Looks like it might be a little bit crooked, meaning that the front here is kind of pointing up in the air compared to the back. we can't square this off just a little bit. There we go. And let's square this corner off a little as well. I'm just using the knife just to square off that corner. Okay, let's see how that looks. Come on. Oh, for crying out loud. Come on. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. I'm just going to trim this edge off. Tilt this up so you can see. So, tilt it back a little bit. There you go. So you can see right here, right there. So that edge is out a little bit too far. So I'm just going to trim that a little bit. Just a little bit to try to push it back. And it doesn't have to be very much, that's for sure. So, I mean, I just barely took any off there. We'll square that up with the knife. And, yeah. Alright, I'm going to say that's good enough. Anything more than that, I can use putty to correct. And, yeah. So now the trick is I have to glue this in place. So we're going to need some more glue. Get the old glue out here. Need more glue. Alright. And I think this time, instead of using that stick, I'll use one of these micro brushes. And I've got like 400 of them, right? Might as well use them. So, you realize that this top is rounded. If you put it upside down, it does not stand up. I don't know if you guys realize that. I just learned that. Kind of being a bit facetious there. I kept putting it upside down, and for a second I couldn't figure out why it would not stand up. I thought there was something wrong. Alright. There's this. And let's forceps. Come on. There we go. Kind of in place. Alright, so what I'm going to do, same thing I did before, is I'm just going to put some glue along this back to help strengthen it. There we go. Now, just a matter of letting that dry, then we'll clean it up, paint it, and then basically what I'm going to do is, after I get all this cleaned up and stuff, I'll get this glued on in place. Then I'm going to have to mask this cushion. I'll have to mask the whole cushion so I can paint this part. Um, that was the downfall of attaching the cushion to the base, is um, not being, having to come back and paint it. I wanted to paint this all together. I could have painted this part before, but I decided against it. So I'll be able to do that with this in place. And, I'll get all the putty and stuff that I need put on it as well to get it all cleaned up before I do any of the painting. But hopefully that'll go well. So, all right. Um, I'll come back after it's all painted and everything so you can see the final thing. I'm not going to show the puttying and all that kind of stuff. That's just going to be some tedious stuff, and I don't know how interesting it'll be for you. So, but there we go. I made that little thing out of part of a for sale sign. Kind of cool. Never done anything like that before. Okay, see you after a bit. Okay, welcome back, everybody. So everything's been done, and I wanted to show you the final result here of what I did. So you can see that this has been glued. I painted it, and what I did was I actually used the same color. I used the uh, German gray, right? But I did a 10-to-1 ratio basically. I added some black to it. So what I have was the German gray, 50 drops of German gray in my little cup for my air gun, and then I did 10 or 5 drops of black with it. I just wanted to darken it up just a little bit. And this is actually really the color that I was kind of looking for this, but that didn't work out. But that's okay. We'll make this work. I've still got some washes and stuff that I'm going to do to this to kind of spruce it up a little bit. So you can see here that I did the plastic. I also used some putty. So let me show you the putty here. It's the Tamaya putty, white. This stuff is crazy. It gets all over the place. You can see a little spot there where I got a little bit there, but it dries really well. And what I did was I put some. Uh, Actually, it was before I did it. I put the putty on and kind of smoothed it out as best I could when I put it on, and then I waited for it to dry. I actually waited um, a little over a day, maybe 2 days if I remember right, before I sanded it. But when I sanded it, I masked this whole thing off, and I sanded it, and then I painted it this with the putty and everything. So I painted it, and then right after I got done painting it, I was waiting for this to dry, the paint to dry, and then I was going to come back with some clear coat. So I was going to come back with some gloss clear, and my compressor died. The motor froze up on it, so I nearly had a electrical fire because of it. So I hand painted the gloss. So it came out pretty well. I think that it's fairly smooth, but you can see that it's a bit glossy. And so if you recall, this was more kind of creased than curved. So I put some putty here and I rounded it off a little bit. So hopefully that kind of shows through. It's not as creased as it was. Just a little bit there, but that's okay. I don't think you'll notice it because when you're going to be looking at it, I think it's going to sit in the Falcon like this, and you'll be looking down at this angle here. Maybe it's like this. It might be like, I think it's like this because this whole wall will be visible and there'll be an archway here, which incidentally will be the next thing that we're working on, I believe. So I just wanted to kind of show this off with it in place and show that it will actually fit in place. So it tells me that I cut this correctly. So you can see there's the end of it, and you can see just a hint of the putty in there. Let's see if I can get that to focus. So you can see just a hint of the putty in there. But there a little bit of the putty went across the seat, and it was all white. You couldn't see it. So what it did was I used a little bit of the German gray and just dry brushed that and covered up the white. And I think that came out pretty well. You can, if you look hard enough, you can tell that it's maybe a slightly different color than the rest of the seat, but that'll be fine. I don't think too many people will notice. Here I did a test brush, uh, regular paintbrush of the clear coat because I wanted to make sure that it was going to come out smooth, and it did. And then I, of course, clear coated this and this side because that's all the stuff that you're going to see when it's in place. Everything else will be hidden, right? So it's going to go in like this. So all of the gray part that is going to be seen, I made sure I clear coated, and and that is also all got the same color, the dark paint. So this was kind of a pain to mask off, because I had to mask off and then cut the paint here or the tape here, so I didn't paint the bottom. Not that you're going to see the bottom of the cushion, but I didn't want it to come over. And I did a little bit of dry brushing on the edges, just to kind of color those in. Because if you remember where I had sanded those or yeah, sanded them down, they were pretty white. So, but there you go. That is the last bit of this. So really, all that was for this episode or this issue was the bunk and putting the cushion on here. I could have had this done in like 5 minutes in reality, maybe 10 by the time I did all the cushions and stuff and sanded it and everything. Um, but as you can see, I did a little bit extra to it, and with the painting and all that kind of stuff, that took a little bit extra time. And I like how that turned out. In fact, let me show you why I did this. In case you guys haven't caught this in the movies, here's a picture right here. I think I'm gonna have two pictures maybe, so you'll kind of get to see a couple different angles or whatever. And there's not a perfect shot of this. You can actually see it best from The Force Awakens. So they replicated that in The Force Awakens. But yeah, so that's why I did that. So let's give a quick review of issue 8. And so issue 8, we're going to be doing this back wall, and that's this wall here. I think I mentioned that before. And then we're going to have the little Navicomputer, the seat backs, and we got the wide ones, and then there's narrow ones, and then some of the piping that goes on in this hull here. So there's some textured pieces that go in here. So we'll start getting the crew area done up, and but um, I was able to go get a new uh, air compressor today, so I will be able to continue painting. That was kind of going to be one of the problems I was really worried about, was not being able to continue airbrushing. That would have really slowed me down because I did not want to hand paint these because it just wasn't going to turn out right. But yeah, so we will continue that on in issue 8. Odds are issue 8 will probably end up being at least 2 episodes as well, because there's actually going to be more work to do that than there was for just these 2 things. This was quick. It's this that took the most time because I had to build this. But there's going to be a lot of hand painting and that kind of stuff. So we'll be doing a lot of extra stuff there. So probably going to be 2 episodes as well. So anyway, I hope you guys like this, and I hope that um, uh, you guys are as impressed with this as I am, because I've never done anything like this before. And like I said, I used a for sale sign, for crying out loud, and made that. So that's kind of cool. I'm really impressed with myself. So with that, thanks everybody. Take care.